Okay, let us start. Good evening, students, and uh, all the faculties who have joined tonight's webinar. I welcome all of you to our Tuesday webinar. This webinar is supposed to take place earlier, but due to some other activities, we could not make it on the allotted date. However, I am truly grateful tonight to organize this webinar, and I hope you are thoroughly prepared for the discussion. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce our panel for tonight. Please switch on your video as I called out your name. Or panel okay. So the moderator for tonight is Mr. C Lalengliana. He's from 5th semester, roll number 4. So he'll be moderating tonight's session. He'll be in charge of all the time and all the discussion. Okay, so he's the moderator. And we have the presenter, who is Aldrin, Zothanmawia, roll number 1. So basically, he is in charge of tonight's topic. So he has done a lot of research and he has discussed with his team. Aldrin is the presenter, and we have two discussants, Jonathan Thangeo, roll number 14, and Mary Lalthlamuani, roll number 34. They are both the discussants for tonight. So they will be discussing the two topics. I mean, the discussion which is laid down, and they'll be opening those topic for discussion. And we have Rapporteur Lalnunsangi, who will be recording all the proceedings of tonight, and she'll be reporting at the end of the session. So I welcome all the panel, and apart from this, I want to announce that after the presenter and the discussants have done their job, the house will be open for discussion. So since this is a classroom webinar, everyone will be participating. So for that, names will be picked out randomly, so that you will share your ideas and discuss. So please get ready, everyone, and you are to stay alert, okay? And we also have the teachers tonight, so they can share their thoughts and views on the topic. So I welcome them and I thank them for joining this session. So now I give this session to the moderator. Welcome. So you may start with the proceeding.
Okay, thank you, Miss. And once again, good evening to everyone. And I take this privilege to welcome respected teachers and our fellow students who sincerely committed to this webinar to make a success. And I would like to request you all to be with us till the end of this event. As a moderator, I would like to lay down some direction to the presenter and discussant, that to try to make clear about your point and stick to the point, so that the audience would be able to catch up easily. And and please do not be in a hurry, and do not need to speed up your lecture, so that we can have a good time. And we have, as our faculty has mentioned, we have Zothanmawia. He will be presenter and will be presenting his paper on an overview of the judicial inroad into copyright law, and he will try to conclude his presentation within 25 to 30 maximum. And two discussants One is Jonathan Thangeo and Miss Mary Lalthlamuani. Both of them are from 5th semester, and they will be having a discussion on the topic which they were assigned, and they can have at least 2 minutes, 10 minutes each for their discussion. And now, may I invite Mr. Aldrin Zothanmawia to present his paper on an overview of the judicial road into copyright law. Mr. Aldrin, you can take your time, please.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Is my screen, can you see my screen? Am I properly audible?
Yes, please go on.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. A very good evening to our respected and esteemed faculty members. Good evening to my fellow students and other parties who have joined this webinar tonight. This evening, I must say that I have the privilege of enlightening you all in putting forth our seminar topic, an overview of the judicial inroads into copyright law, answering perplexing questions. Tonight, we will also put forth a special case study on the subsistence of copyright on P. L. Yandinga's Mizo translation of the Sherlock Holmes novels. Moving on. Firstly, let us establish briefly, I would like to briefly elaborate what is the status of copyright law in India. Basically, copyright, it implies the exclusive right to do or authorize others to do certain acts in relation to literary, dramatic or musical work, artistic work, cinematograph, film, and sound recording. It is an exclusive right to do certain things. Do what? We will elaborate it in the next point. So the primary objective, the primary purpose of having this legislation is to promote the progress of science and useful arts. Ladies and gentlemen, ever since time immemorial, human beings have been advancing and inventing stuff, inventing things and creating things. And we have come to the point where those inventions are so much important to the person inventing it that we have a copyright law in India, and it came to be known by us, the people remotely from India. So the primary objective of copyright is to promote progress of science and useful arts. It is expedient to note that ladies and gentlemen, it is expedient to note that it is a negative right rather than a positive right. In spite of the wording exclusive right used here, we must know that it is a negative right. Negative right meaning in the sense that the owner of a copyright does not have the right to publish his work, the right to publish his literary work anywhere else. It just means that it is a right against any other person. And it prevents third parties from doing acts which only the owner is entitled to do under the act. So what is he entitled to do? What right does he have? A right to do what? It is envisaged, it is provisioned in section 14. Section 14 says that the author or producer or performer of literary work or any of the other initiatives which have been mentioned before, he have the right to reproduce the work in any material form, including storing it in electronic media, issue the copies of the work to the public, perform the work in public, make any cinematograph film in respect out of it, make any translation, and make any adaptation that is derived out of the work. Other than those, a copyright holder, a copyright owner have additional protection other than those, which is called the moral right of the author, which is provisioned in section 57, and moral right of performer, section 38b. These two are more or less the same. Moral right, let me briefly explain what is moral right. Moral right, let me put forth an example. For example, I've here put the a news item from Superman. It says that Superman comes out as bisexual in DC's latest comics. For example, just for the sake of this seminar, let's say I am the writer and the creator of Superman, and I intended him to be a straight superhero, a straight guy. And and people, time comes, and people came to know about this superhero and write their own interpretation without taking my consent. Without taking my consent, they write their own interpretation of Superman. And furthermore, that person, let's say, he is writing Superman as a character who is bisexual. So I did not intend, at first, I did not intend him to be a bisexual. I intend him to be a straight man. So other than infringing upon my copyright, in which that person does not take my authority, take my consent, or claim a license from me, other than infringing my copyright, he is doing something which is prejudicial to me, which is defamatory to me and my work. So the protection for that right is called moral right. Now let's briefly look upon the limitations. There are 3 limitations. The first limitation is limited duration of a copyright, which is provisioned in Section 22. Section 22 says that a work limited to life of the author and is limited to 60 years after death. Copyright subsists during the lifetime of the original author of that work and after 60 years. Furthermore, there is called a doctrine of fair use. Even though this doctrine is not specifically mentioned in Section 52, it has been elaborated by certain courts. It says that free use can be made in copyright protected work. For example, let's say, I am writing a book for private study, for private research, and even though that right is protected, even though that right is copyright registered, duly copyright registered, me publishing my own interpretation deriving from that work will have copyright on its own, and it will not infringe the copyright of that person who is the original author of that something which I'm studying. Also, let's say I report something. I'm a news reporter. And I'm reporting something for the public broadcast, even though, let's say, I get an economic benefit out of it. And in that economic, even though I did not take permission of that place which I derive my work, and even though I gain economic benefit out of it, it cannot be said that I'm infringing upon the right of that institution. Also, the third limitation is compulsion. Let's say our host tonight, Mr. C Lalengliana, wrote a book about, let's say, wheelchairs, a scientific work about wheelchairs, and that information is so important to be dispersed. Let's say it is so important to be dispersed, and me being a worker for persons with disabilities, I want that information for him to be dispersed or by myself to translate it into the Mizo language. And let's say Mr. C Lalengliana don't want to issue a license or don't want to take consent. The remedy is that the limitation for his copyright is that I can approach the appellate board, ask the appellate board to grant compulsory license. So that is the third limitation. Now let's delve into the first question of law, since our seminar is confined to answering perplexing questions. Even though this copyright law is hunky-dory, everything is fine when read into it, but in practical there are so many gray areas, so we are here to clear it. The first perplexing question is registration copyright? Is registration of copyright compulsory? we know that copyright protection is automatic in the sense that, let's say, our rapporteur for tonight, Mrs. Catherine, wrote an artwork, a beautiful painting. Let's say she paints some beautiful painting, and immediately after painting that thing, her product, the law says that copyright subsists immediately there. So there is no need to be registered. However, we need to know that there is no provision in the copyright law which says that an author of a work would not be able to enjoy his right under copyright law merely for non-registration of his copyright. And it is a law that registration of copyright is optional and not mandatory. This view was enforced by the courts, or by all the Supreme Courts, by all the courts here. Usually, basically, they say that prosecution for infringement of copyright did not require registration as a prosecution. And other than this, there is a dissenting view here. There is a dissenting view here which says that these courts say that yes, copyright registration is mandatory. It must be registered to be brought up before a civil court. If you are to bring an action before the court, rather it be a civil or a criminal, you need to register. However, the majority of the cases, the majority of these courts here say that no, it is not needed. Even the case here, Rajesh Masrani, even in the court here, Rajesh Masrani versus Tahiliani Design Private Limited, say that in a case of suit for damages for infringement of copyright, the registration is not compulsory for claiming protection. What we need to know is that when someone is infringing our copyright, we can go to the court and ask for and pursue it and we can pursue it for two actions. The first is we can approach it for seeking damages, which would be under the domain of civil suit. And other than that, we can ask the court for to put it up as a criminal liability, liability. And the punishment for infringing a copyright will be is usually 2 years and also a fine as well. But that fine will go to the court. Now, our second question of contention: should original work be an expression of original or inventive thought? What is an original work? Let's say, suppose our classmate, Mr. Vincent wrote a biography about our politician, Mr. Laldinsanga, MLA, his rise of being an MLA, how he became an IPS officer, and how he was being re-elected in his constituency even after he was thrown out in some accusations. Let's say he wrote it and he published a book, and let's say he duly registered his work. And I, particularly, let's say I came to be interested in writing and also writing about the biography of Mr. Laldinsanga. And there is the question: can Vincent say that no, you cannot write about him because it is an original work by me? It is an original work. It is a subject matter, an original work by me. So you cannot write a biography about him because I have copyright protection. I have duly registered my work. We will answer it in the following. To answer that question, we will have to look into Section 13 of the Copyright Act, which provisions that copyright subsists in original literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic work. It just wrote that. It is just written like that. So there is in no way a definition of original. So we will have to resort to the court's interpretation, the judiciary's interpretation. In Rupendra Kashyap versus Jiwan Publishing House, the court held that the word original in Section 13 of the Act did not imply any originality of ideas, but merely meant that the work in question would not be copied from some other work and should originate from the author being the product of his labor and skill. What this basically means that these courts say that yes, you can publish a work which is of the same subject matter. You can do that, and you will be entitled a copyright in that work, even though original, even though the subject matter is not original. If your outcome is not copied, let's say for our example, if your outcome is not copied from Mr. Vincent, if your outcome of your literary work is not copied, if the wordings is not copied from Mr. Vincent, then yes, you can have a copyright protection there. Let's also put forth the Supreme Court interpretation in Eastern Book Company versus D.B. Modak. This court even here stated that there will be two classes of literary work. First, primary or prior works, literary works not based on existing subject matter, something new, some subject matter which have never been originated before. And secondary or derivative work, literary works based on existing subject matter. So this court, basically what this court recognized is that there are two classes, and that a work can be a copyright can be duly registered. A person can have a copyright over a work even though it is not entirely original, even though the subject matter is not original. So that I hope that is the answer to what I've put forth as an example. Yes, I can write about the biography of Mr. Laldinsanga unless and until if I do not copy the work of Mr. Vincent. However, we have to note that there is to be a standard of creativity in the court by the Supreme Court in Dr. Rekewek versus Advent Biotech Private Limited. This court here observed that a document which is merely a compilation in which there is no employment of any skill, judgment, and labor in the manner in which the sequencing was done in the aforementioned did not qualify as work. Let's say, for example, my fellow students wrote distinct articles, very, very great articles, and I have an idea. I want to compile it. I want to compile those articles, and I compile it and I publish it as a book. However, if I want to have a copyright protection on the compilation of the work which I basically have economic benefit out of it, I will at least have to put some effort, put some skill or judgment or labor in the compilation in my work. Let's say I just compile it, and without putting any labor or skill, I just publish it as my own. The court will interpret it as, no, you will not have a copyright there. So let's say I summarize the articles of my fellow students, or let's say I put some head notes there, put some guidelines, or put forward. And if I do that, then that means that even though those works are not entirely mine, even though the originator of that work belongs to my fellow students, I will have copyright protection over my compilation of my book. All right. The next question which we will delve on is, does a translator of copyright work have copyright protection on his own? I will, for the sake of educational purposes, again, I will put an example on a very interesting book called Parasite. Parasite, it has been made into a movie in, I believe it was 2019 or 2020. It even won the best picture in the Oscars, and it originates from from South Korea, directed by Bong Joon-ho, written and directed by Bong Joon-ho. Let's say I want to translate this work into Mizo language, and also I want to copyright my translation. And let's say it is being considered in the court. How will the court interpret it? Will I have a copyright protection on this translation? On this translation? That will be answered when we look into the provisions of the Copyright Act 1957 again. Here, just like before, there is no definition of the word, there is no specific definition of the word translation. And when we read into section 14, which defines translation, it only gives the right to the owner of the copyright, the original owner of the copyright, to publish translations. So when we read these provisions, the right to translate is only given to the original author. So what will we do? Since there is no specific provision which said it there, we will have to look into international conventions, international treaties. Let's look into Article 2 of the Berne Convention, where India is a signatory. We all know about the Berne Convention. Berne Convention talks about it is a treaty of copyright, intellectual property protection for the member, for the signatory countries. Article 2 of the Berne Convention says that the translation of a literary or artistic work shall be protected as original works without prejudice to the copyright in the original work. So what this basically means, what this basically says is that translations are protected under copyright without, they are not subservient to the copyright protection of the original work. They have the same right. They must have the same protection. So it is written there in the Berne Convention. However, when we have to inculcate international laws, when we have to inculcate international treaties, what we should know is that in India, can it be used? Let's look into the court's interpretation again. In Jolly George Verghese versus Bank of Cochin, and also in State of West Bengal versus Kesoram Industries, what these two courts basically say is that until the municipal law is changed to accommodate some treaty, what binds the court is the former and not the latter. Also, in this State of West Bengal case, the court say that India follows the doctrine of dualism, and a treaty entered into India cannot become the law of the land unless Parliament passes a law as required under Article 253. So basically, what these two courts say is that when we try to use international laws, we must the Parliament must first frame laws in furtherance of the treaty or convention empowered under Article 253. So, does it mean that the Berne Convention will not apply in India? Even though international treaties, we know that international treaties, as according to the interpretation which I have just put forth, even though the international laws does not apply, is there some loopholes? Let's look into the several courts interpretation here again. In all of these three rulings, I will not specifically say them or dictate to you all out. What these courts say is that a copyright protection is there even from a translation if the author have put some labor, because it is a derivative work. It is a derivative work, and it is not subservient to a work originated from something which have not been invented. So thanks to the court's interpretation, thanks to judiciary interpretation, thanks to the judicial inroads, we can establish that, yes, a translator, with the consent, there needs to be consent first, with the consent of the original author or due license, his work, his translation, being a derivative work, is protected under the copyright law. He can ask for copyright protection registration. Now, finally, the most awaited theme for tonight, the case study of the subsistence of copyright on P.L. Liandinga's Mizo translation of the Sherlock Holmes novels. Firstly, I'd like to say that I have taken the prior permission of Mr. P.L. Liandinga for to be used as an example of his work here tonight for the sake of educational purpose. So, Mr. P.L. Liandinga, he started publishing his Mizo translation of the Sherlock Holmes series into a book, into a Mizo translation in the mid 1980s, and he had subsequently translated 13 translations. The first is The Study of Scarlet, and the last is the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes. And when we ask him that if he had acquired a consent or obtained a license from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle or the holders of the copyright owners of this book, Sherlock Holmes, this novel, the Conan Doyle estate, he simply said that no, I have not acquired it, but however, I know that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle died in 1930, so in good faith, in furtherance of enriching visual literature, I have just translated it. We know that it is being critically acclaimed, and Mr. P.L. Lendingas is critically acclaimed, and also personally, I really appreciate what he has done. Now let's look into the legality. There can be two questions. The first question is the initiative of Mr. P.L. Lendinga an infringement of the copyright of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle? And the second question, since we know that there is a copyright protection of a translation, will P.L. Lendinga's work be carrying the copyright protection on its own? We will have to look into the legislation again. Section 22 of the Copyright Act states that copyright in the literary works subsists within the lifetime of the author until 60 years from the beginning of the calendar year. So we know that, to simply answer it, we know that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle died in 1930, so we can confidently say that Sherlock Holmes novels now belong to the public domain. When it belongs to the public domain, everyone can make a work out of it, unless and until they do not infringe upon the moral right of that author or that copyright holder. So even though Mr. P.L. Lendinga infringes the copyright protection, the copyright of the Conan Doyle estate during 1980s, because it has not been expired, it has not expired until there. Now it is 2021. So even though it was done subsequently, we now, since it belongs to the public domain, Sherlock Holmes, we can just simply say that P.L. Lendinga is duly entitled to copyright protection. And let's say if someone read out his translation in YouTube and publish it in YouTube for economic gain, Mr. P.L. Lendinga have copyright protection, because it is, like I've said before, to summarize, it is a derivative work, and translation of a literary work is recognized by law, thanks to judicial interpretation. Now, due to time constraint, I will not delve deeper into this topic. In our write-up, we have we have elaborated a bit further. We have been complicating things. We have assumed that, let's say, the copyright protection is still there, is still subsisting till date. What will be the loopholes? We have delved into the Berne Convention also, and also we have delved into the ambit of international copyright order, which protects the copyright of foreign countries, which is issued by India. But I will not elaborate it further due to time constraint. I will move on. If you want, you can read it in my write-up, which I will disperse to you later on. Now, the next question: does copyright subsist in ideas, plots, or themes? To shortly answer it, no. Let's take, for example, again, I'm very, very enthusiastic in film cinematographies, and I have an idea. Of writing a film of disbursing to the public a cinematography, an original idea. I have an idea, and let's say I tell it to my friend Jonathan. Let's say he's a renowned director. Let's say he's a renowned filmmaker, and I tell my idea to him. I explain to him how I intend to put the characters, my themes, and years later, Mr. Jonathan, without my consent, he just made a film out of my idea. And when I saw that, I was very, very infuriated, and I approached the court. And I approached the court saying that Mr. Jonathan infringes my copyright because he is making a film out of my idea. My the central theme, the spirit of his film is derived from me. So how will the court interpret it? The court will interpret it as, no, you will not have the copyright in an idea because you do not put it in a tangible manner. You haven't been expressing it. At least if you have expressed it in writing or in at least some tangible form, you will have a copyright there. But a mere idea or of plots or themes, you will not have the copyright protection there. Now, since we know that copyright protection is not there in ideas, what about concepts? Let's take an example again. We know that Zonet Cable TV is now having a program called Lalnunsangi. The film, the show it has that show and it has been running it, and let's say LPS, the creators of LPS made some similar program deriving out of it and just changed the name. Can we say that, can LPS say that, no, it is just an idea? Based on this court's interpretation, we can say that since Zonet have been putting it into a tangible form, even though this concept is being put into this concept have been put into a tangible form, so even though it is derived from an idea, it is no longer just a mere idea. It is there in the tangible form. So it became copyrighted work only when it was given embodiment in the tangible form. So that so in a nutshell, we can say that yes, concepts are protected under the copyright law. Now, lastly, a bonus point. Does a lecture delivered in a classroom have subsistence of copyright? Let's say I record into writing the teachings of our professors, of our faculty members, and I put it into writing and I publish it for economic gain. Or let's say I screen record the teachings of our professors, and I compiled it into something. I compiled it and let's say I publish it on YouTube for monetary gain, for economic gain. Will copyright subsist there in the teachings of our professors because they have just been merely blurted out? Naturally, if it is reduced to writing before it is delivered, well, a lecture, naturally, a lecture will only be entitled to copyright if it is reduced to writing. Naturally, the law is there, the principle is there. However, let's look into the court's interpretation again, the judiciary's interpretation again, the judicial inroads. The judicial inroads, the court here in Card versus Syme say that although the lecture delivered in a classroom is seldom written out, the author retains his right of property in those lectures. Otherwise, he will be hesitant in giving his original views to the students. So thanks to this court's interpretation, copyright protection over a lecture delivered in a classroom is copyright protected. Let me reiterate it one more time again in miso. Klasa zirtir na kan zirtir utana zirtira min pe kahi azia chua niaw ma se dan ran chuanin azia chua tur ningi ani e ti than chu mati principle chu mamaro chu he court interpretation mang hian lecture reng atlang kuin azia chuan ngai lawang teacher te hianin an ziak chok ngai lawang chuwang chuanin e author kan ti chu kan teacher te khanin kha lecture han property an nei lo ni chuanin engtin nge an original view kha zirlai de bulan pek ngamang copyright protection an nei lo ni tin sia chuan engtin nge an view dikta kan soinga mang ti in he court on interpret ni. And furthermore here, in Abernethy versus Hutchinson case, the court held that students are under an implied contract to not publish classroom lectures, though they are entitled to use them for their own information in studies. You might have the tendency to publish or record in writing or publish in a book the teachings of our professors. But according to the law of the land, according to the court's interpretation, no, you cannot do it. And we are under an implied contract to not publish classroom lectures, and we can just have it for our own benefit, for only educational, only information purposes. That is all for our seminar, for my presentation. If there are any questions, I would like to entertain them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zothanmawia, for sharing us a wonderful and informative presentation. And you can finish within time. And thank you once again. Now, moving on to the next, may I now invite Mr. Jonathan Thangeo to have a discussion on, do you think the copyright law in India is exhaustive so as to extend its jurisdiction in the cyber law? Mr. Jonathan?
First and foremost, thank you for this opportunity. And sorry. In 1953, and back then it was just about printing books and everything, and printing was not it was pretty tough to pirate printing copies, because to print a book or any text, it required a huge hardware, and because of that there was not much danger or mass spread of such plagiarism. And even if they did, well, they could still, even if someone copied it, they could still, find out who it was. It was not that tough. But now with the technology, such as fax machines, copywriters, computer, Microsoft Word, and printers, copying has become very easy, and the Indian law the Copyright Act alone was not the old ones, which was prevalent, which we could not. It was not suitable with the time, with the technology, and hence there were some amendments made. In 1994, there was amendments made in the Indian Copyright Act where the definitions were changed and the names were changed from from motion movies to cinematography, and from music to, from phonography to sound recording and such. And now from that, and new ones were also added, like in section 74 of the Indian Copyright Act. Anything that it involves with computer or computer technology, it deals with that. It takes notes in that, and now, but still, every day with the growing technology, there's always new challenges that there is to face. Some of the challenges are like when a subscriber to an ISP does something illegal, who is to be blamed? Is it the ISP provider, is the ISP or the subscriber. Now here, going off topic, I'll just give you a brief knowledge about ISP. And ISP is Internet Service Providers. Basically, ISP is like Airtel, Geophone, all these same, they're internet providers. And one more thing I would like to also go off topic is for your knowledge is the difference between internet and internet was made way back, part of C Lalengliana Department of Defense, and it was made because there was, okay, I won't go there. So internet is free. Like you can browse. Internet is free for everyone. There is no government or any kind of imposition on them. But the websites which there are, you might have to pay a few charges because they'll be provided by ISPs. And this www World Wide Web website was started by Tim Berners-Lee in 1989. He made it for free information exchanges, but soon, websites like Facebook, MySpace, and all these started coming up, and they started taking the charge. And then there were websites, file sharing websites like Napster, Kazaa, Torrent. I think Torrent is something which most of us are acquainted with. And Napster, which was started in 1999 by 18-year-old Sean Fanning and Sean Parker, they made it. This software was unlike other software which were peer-to-peer, means machine to machine. This software, there was one more third tier to this where people can upload and download songs. So songs were illegally uploaded and downloaded from there, and soon the world media, everybody, even the RIAA, which is the regulation for in the recording industry for American music, I think, yeah, something like that. And they started taking notice and they took actions, and more changes happened. More and more changes happened. More and more changes ensued in the laws of different countries. Now there are now new challenges like artificial intelligence, like in the case of in one case in China, in the Tencent Dream Writer AI, which is an AI, the court recognized the AI for giving an original write-up of a work. And then there was another case of it's called the monkey selfie case, where a monkey took a selfie of himself, but the monkey stole that phone from the photographer and took a selfie of itself. It became very popular, but now the questions remain: who is the owner of the copyright, the monkey or the person? But the court handed it over to the person and not the monkey because, okay, I won't delve into that, because of moral understanding. All in all, I'll just say, like, there'll be more as technology progresses on. There'll be more challenges. There'll be more newer laws. Right now, the biggest problem we're facing, I think all of us can relate, is by people making these fake accounts and trolling people, or hacking or fooling people in financially. This is one of the biggest challenges which we still face now. And I think, in time, hopefully they come up with something that with that I end my discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jonathan, for your very nice discussion. And now I'll continuously call upon Miss Mary to also have discussion on the topic of: do you think that there is adequate awareness of copyright law in Mizoram State? Miss Mary, your time to start now.
Thank you, moderator. So as to know the adequate awareness of the copyright law in Mizoram State, Let us have a quick analysis of copyright register under MISTIC, Mizoram Science, Technology and Innovation Council, which have been registered there through them. The first one we have scientist Saihmingthanga, registered under the name of Dr. C Lalengliana, ROC L81550/2019, ROC date of 15th April 2019. And next we have the next registration, Zothanmawia, Space Age. This is also registered under the name of Mr. C Lalengliana, and this is about the natural science, astronomy, astrophysics, space research, geodesy, and techniques. And this the ROC of this number of this is L84573/2019, and the ROC date is 9th August 2019. The next one which we have is Lalnunsangi Science Achangatana, registered under the name of Dr. Lalnunsangi, colony, ROC number L85428/2019, ROC date 13 September 2019. Fourth, we have Saihmingthanga, registered under the name of the producer, Joel Lalbiakima. This work is protected under the sound recording, registration number SR15709/2021. Lastly, for the fifth, we have Lalremmawii, registered under the name of Zothanmawia KGP branch, registration number CF4840/2021. This is an original 1996 musical drama by Saihmingthanga, directed by Sailo Adama. The above mentions are the only registered so far under Mizoram Science, Technology and Innovation Council. Based on the analysis, I felt there is a need to improve can be done. So I would like if any of my fellow student or anyone, if we can try to find out what is how can it be done to improve this awareness. It's so obvious that it's not enough. So is it because of the registration that we are not aware of, or the procedure which we are not thorough or hesitate to do so, or are we so confident about it, so like never mind, even if I just don't do my copyright registration anyhow, I can claim or I can fight for my right, but then it's a long way, and maybe is it that we don't know once the infringement have been done, civil and criminal cases, it have punishment. So if anyone would like to discuss about it, I would be happy. And if for a quick recap, in case if anyone want to register under mistake, they can register to their website, and duration lasts for about almost 2 months or even 3 months only. And then suppose if you want to register your copyright for a book, for per book it's only 500 rupees, wherein you can have the advantages like you will be having an owner right, and then all those other facilities you'll be enjoying. And then the copyright website, that is the copyright.gov.in. You can click onto that. It's really online. And thank you. So if anyone would like to.
Okay, thank you, Miss Mary Lalthlamuani, for your discussion. And now that our presentation and discussion is over, and now we'll move on to the inclusive discussion, and with this, Miss Becky is available.
Yes,
Miss,
yes.
oh yes, if you could help us, it will be a pleasure.
Yes, with the kind permission of the moderator, I think we can conduct further in Mizo as well. Discussion na kasi Mizo chong kanti to ila po lawa because I think we are more comfortable in discussing in Mizo language. Di ba wale? Kan duangin kanin express zok na tan Mizo chong kanin moderator kind permission in kan non hong to panitsu aremati kan ringa.
Okay,
Mr. Moderator. Okay. So, moderator, I would call upon tuna issues. Number one, siya kayo discussing ka siya. Discussing one and then two I think you've been discussing on the same topic. Kalaya kanin in abstract kanin kalaya kasitiyam siya lawa. Anyway. May I call upon kan dito pangi kan ning lawang karon ning law to pangasol moderator kan law tito so may set dire to tuan roll number 10 H Lalremmawii.
Yes, miss. Oh, kacang hin siya.
Zali na topic kan views kamo inge kan ito na kan topic presenter ina so yatanga views anilo pon discussant ina discussion dura panilawin so atang kan katahanin ibon so itiyang.
Chutangin a view song katanin hansoi to kasi lawa at saka tiya mase zo nakakalaw nei zo ka man anani ngay dan ha kasi tsak may maya.
Is on the line to hansoi film la. Chuan.
Niya. Asoya katsu achato ka tiangin kasya copyright eka kanin kasya so chuan section 40 na kanin ay ahwam tin haw ka aron tar lang ta katahan literary te artistic he computer program ti te lekhang haw ka aron tar lang ta khang jinga kanin heng khang wak jinga kanin Mizoram kan man war the ber tu niya nang mani research changa in ngai dan kha ka shetak dewa chu ke zona ni se chan thei chuan
Mr. Rina không in chan sak teng em kalai zona lai article 14
chang thei zona fing ta kan ni azo tu chunga polong bukan soya aron zota kang khan section 40 na khan heng work ho hian copyright protection omang ain tia khang ho zi nga ro po khan enge Mizoram ta na relevant le kan sort thei ber tu enge kan man tlang lon atira han kan huap ma van literary dramatic literary work ang zong do hlekin hemi bias do hlekin sanin chu karon shul do ni artistic le cinematograph le sound recording lama khat le min karon shul man chi lo dawa du le ale pek lama kan classmate te pon he tiang seminar ang hi mi bukit na so don chowin ema view a jan ke ma mu da na chuanin zaina kan thurber literary work protection bi ka kha relevant taberin karinga mase literary work do a chuan o chan kan soi photang literary work here relevant ber ne kan harin ni kil lutuk beratang po in khoi mun chang po in literary work chuak tin literary work ti khan lekhabu chuak bu mo khatin bu article hanji ate ile hey slogan hanji ro te slogan ni te po he copyright tin theina oma se he ta sorry slogan tak chu kling lo ve slogan tak chu kling lo he ta court judgment om to kan han soi zaw do chu slogan bi kha chu court judgment pakhat om to ta chuan Pepsi company panin kinga ta chuan Pepsi company hian deal mange murti Vikram Batra Swina do hi an mang Tony Sumo an mani slogan a chuan court in kinga copyright protection kan nei the man dita ma se court chuan nei thelo slogan an lom an tia ma se chumi ti lo wa chuan an article te thu zia te poem te khang zong zong kha mi tu po ina Mizoram mi tu po ina kan zia tang lon ber ni wangin thule la thim tak tak po kan tama chu wang chun ke ma mu dan chun literary work bi khi ma sabera chuan ni chumi do a chuan ka mu dan chuan sound recording hi ni le maya thla po hi kan siam hem khofa soita kang khan work reng artistic work reng literary work ke mo sound recording mo khoi work po kan siam zo vele copyright kan nei nga ni kan soita kang khan register kher ngai lo in register ngai ti pakhat court chu ma se chumi ti lo chon in register kher ngai le nem copyright protection automatically nei sa ti ngai dan oma chu wang chuan do le relevant ta karina chu sound recording khan le ta chon pathum na chon cinematograph film Mizoram cinematograph film po kan ngai lutana Mizo director chapui pui writer chapui pui kan tam to ne film po chatak tak kan ti chuak to NTR na pakhat kan pe le du chu dengi I love you ti film kha khami po kha I zanin topic a po hen han soi zui tan kan han tum do the kamaro chu tema soi zui ngai te chim om lo wangin a director te po khami ziak tu ubiak lian te po kan han be thova engting in lo ti so dan ti ten kan va beron ni for the purpose of this seminar in kan han soi chu khang de po han dengi I love you film te po kha chado in ti khan ron siama maro chu mi tu ti share lovin YouTube pa te Telegram ate kami a entheina link te khan lo share ni YouTube aten lo upload a kha copyright infringement ya chung kan han soi do na chan chu apathum na chun cinematograph film po hi Mizoram a chun relevant to viau mai Mizoram copyright protection do ro po literary abit ti literary do a sound recording adwa cinematograph film heng ho pathum hi kan sorber to nin karing
no ole ti khan a zona chu Thangeo in sia choni kami elo discussion issue to be discussed akani tinan India ram dan kan nei to hi kami copyright act 1957 hi atha to kem tilaya kha issue pakhat khanita chonenge amendment han bus han ti chakdo ngai te omem chon amendment han siam te le khatiang vel kha tu kan tm tilai khanita number 1 a chon merina ron discuss lai kha nge Mizoram han awareness kan nei thatto gam kemi copyright infringement chung chang ai tinan hote te aponin copyright mi copyright infringe theni khabai chung chang khanin enge audience te kan zilai pui te khan awareness kan nei thatto gam enge mi pui hian mi copyright te hi kan violate na saim kan va za sakem tilai te chuan a punishment ang khalai zong kha mi puihan kan aware to kem tilai ka a issue pakha chunita khami chung changa kani nge ngai dan nei le discuss du view ron thodu te kalom chon hun kan hong leang khongai bis khani tunge ron raise to rakha khongai milo pik sakla mai sela
kan professor te an lo te lami zo pari khalo memle an om le kan teacher se o khamin lo tro on thok me zanin yan kan principal po alo lu to in ka sha sar po hi aboy ko me zan na problem ne ya hi lo langa ano so Saihmingthanga Sailo.
Oh, hello. Good morning, Ale. Zanin kan topic hi interesting katia. Zona han nei po ka tum chuang lo na chungin keima lampang atanga he topic kha discussion chungchang don kati khan kaloin enve nu ala. Chu heta hianin additional information kha kalo chop chuak du ani na taka chuan chuta chuan in hemi copyright chung chang hi apoimo zia hi kan hremek anga abikin title kan ti ang te po hi ron keng ko tu ani a tin ownership te po kan zirta a khata khanin tunge ownership diktak khami property akhan tunge ownership diktak ni ang ti te po kha miron proof saktu ani inkria tin heta hianin case pani poimo do me han soi chua kan du shrim shima chu RC Cooper versus Union of India ti hi omata hianin copyright hi property ani a to the highest rights a man can have to anything being that rights the ani a chuanin khang ho rights zinga khanin trademarks kan ti te copyrights kan ti te patent te po hi om ta ni tin china khanin kan presenter ina lo present lai khanin negative rights ran ti kha kapeng alo very memboka chuanin rights in rem kan ti ange against the whole world kan ti angreng te po kha aron tar lang chengin ka ria chuanin copyrights lut na le kha kan ku chuaka midang laka influence ani theina tu laka kan lo protect na sa theizia le danina engani protection milo pek sanjia kha aron tar lang chenge memin ka ria ani tin a case pani na chuanin Amarnath Sehgal versus Union of India hianin china khanin kan presenter khanin moral rights chung chang kha aron soiboka chuta chuanin court khanin copyright chung chang hi hianin existence of a privileged relationship exists between a creative author and their works aron ti ani chuwangin khata khan unmoral rights kha aron da sang meya infringe thailo angtluk le lo infringe pala om chuanin copyrights section 57 emoni khami kha aron violate the ani ti in protection kha sang takin aron pe ni in alang bokani tin anglo nasina khanin discussion ho chung changa khan Mizoram chung changa copyrights kan lo don sondana hi kema observation kan peversion primang chunga copyrights hian in mun hi alo athalo lein ka ria tin kan economical factor te po ani karing do leka chu zona ma sabera po khanin eng uak ka nge copyright si kan man war berang ti te po aron lang ta khang te po ka ril ro lo lang se mem me ni chu zonang po ni lovin engtin nge copyright si awareness kan ne nga ma se awareness kan ne the tu khanin copyright hian engang takin nge kan ram hi min hong theyang timeyang engang takin nge mi puita na kan tangkai pui thei zo kang copyright act copyright kha kan lo nei vek ani pon chuanin negativity lampang kha min nuklut zok ngem oti te kangai tu atu lai chuan zai thiam te kan tama thlapo thiam te kan tamta kan protect tu na sat lu tu khanin mi than kha chuanin economic benefit ai ma chuanin larna te po kha kan lo be sei zok ta chuta chuan engang chi in nge hemi copyright chung changa hianin mizo te han kan lo ton sondan ti kha azonang po ni lovin ngai dan thrim kha kan discussant te emo kan presenter te po khanin min shil fe thei chuan ti kha karon chop chuak sha mangai kalome
Mama Vincent izona tazinga intinge copyright ni tapekila iti po ke po kan kalawng ito avechina chuan entinan ka chan pa pakhat hi John namteni ta la hi po avechinta chuan alapwa anga tipo apoi lawe ti te leng dangan tam ti te ton leni omang mo ti tele di lui ti te ni ta chuan ama po I kan presentation hemi kan seminar ni don han webinar kan nei dona inge nangma inge dan la te kha inei ve no to la pa te kha itui ro pui sia chuan copyright nei te hi tu mem ata ani chuanin angai da na kha chu heti han min changa ti han adu tu in samei se kema chuanin chu tanga commercialize ka tum lawa la kha ka la tui mi kan ya khatya an milo saksak du ka chuan kalom em ata ngai dan chikhat anita chuan le lama chuan helama kamel share chadeu me hi ania educational purpose lampang tan hianin I nge tholok tak jing mi anita ni amai ro chu nge heart an ge ngoi anita khatyang anga uluk dawa I lo educational purpose ani anga guidebook chi sang te alo siama achang te pe chon mu chalo angin tikhan itlaiwar chak te ati na kha tu na hian slight problem ania anei chu khatyang anga heart an nakha I pay off tur angkhanin I poisa a ashal the tur angkha hisab mishing chang kan nei ka engkim kan ti in cho ma se kha en lo pdf in an lo circulate fok me a intinge copyright chungchang min zota ka chuan copyright ti ve mi ka du ta e inge ka eligible em intinge ka ti ang tin mi lo le zot lo ve le thunga chuwang chuan in thil hi engkim hi a thatna a uma a that lo na po uma hemi awang hianin law student hi kan mo phuna sang ema balance life intinan education po nge tuna webinar te pui mak pulau engma ani lo ma se effort to pek ve ngai twale khatyang nga he lockdown semi lockdown lai ten isa phone call ang te po mi wa zo lom to thil chi sang zo tor tam ema chu kema chuan ka thlir dan chuan thil chu a thatna uma a that lo na uma chu ti wa ni zo chu I nge kan namzia a kai ka engkim hi kanin po a kanin shachang tlanga chuwang chuanin he copyright hi enge mochina hi chuanin enge restricted ni nge register ni thei angse katiani achan chu dichina ka soito te jinga mi khan chamari branch khami musical drama te pokha dakar khatchwanga ne mase buina te pokan ena acha ka ti mai ro chu khatyanga nga he imitate anga fiam thu thonan te anga muwa an lo man kha chuanin kha har sa ta kan ti kharu na do na ni chuan entinan hansui zau le te dewila alo zonet te lps te po kan mizoram anga chuan kan lo shadlar channel anita khatyanga te khan chi sang film angte vai film changa a Russian film thlengkha an translate chin ta ni khatyang an translate na china te khan enge entinge translator pakhat ve ka zo ta ni chu zo ne te chang le lps changin entinge inti thin he translate the ni se antia india in translate tuk me copyright te in lam ta ke mani chu dang ni ron be phatak tak lawang a korean te poni se a vai te poni se Russian te poni se hetian entertainer kan ni angin ti hanin mi in an education ni lo bok puina an lo ne the takin tin kan translate ve tok me antia chuwang chuanin hemia hianin atop nan chuan tuna kan lo zir te hi ke mani thil nakina kingko tu kan ni angin a thatna le thatlo na pros and cons om ti sharingin engchin nge ti tora engchin nge lo nge ti tora anga kha chu mi kha guide pe thei zo kila chuan balance de win ti ila extreme lo ila kan lok pui ka ring kalone
alo mom jele poni sela puar ke le zolan
loksin kalo belle zoi thengim khoin
rei le tuklawila midang ta khan khun kha kian lo let ilamo
den mai chin par pe to khachu tu me ka ma mi ron soi ang zul zui do khan pu pi liandinga chungchang case soi zau kan tumna lama khan hun te kan man he do hleka wangin soi zau ta man vak lova India rama hian India copyright order 1999 impose ani ni omzia chu international foreign country changa work reng copyright reng protect na order ni ta chuanin section paragraph 5 paragraph 5 a chuan adita sin soilo maila only in respect of the translation of such work into any language specified in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India tingita omzia chu toizong soidon chuanin order 5 paragraph 5 of the India International Copyright Order 1999 India Parliament ina foreign country atanga ron chuak copyright work protect atumna hianin 8th schedule omte nilo ho language atel velo ni 8th schedule chuanin trong ho chu trong som ni pani ta chuanin chinami kan han soi te po entirnan literary work ani mo cinematograph film ani mo khang translation lo ti po khani se infringement omlo asan chu karin da me chuanin age schedule ti specifically anon soi kherna san chu age schedule mang pachin ho chu trong language tam tham do lek mi pui tam to na ni wangin minority ho min protect du wangin karinga chu wang chuanin na chin po han kan soya a loopholes tina ni ta ni mizo trong in translation lo ti mo ani pon Korean film moten lo dapani po khanin I age schedule chunga kan tel ve miaw lo wangin I copyright infringement ating lo anga ngai thei turin he paragraph hi aron omani dikha kan tar lang le zoi duni chu
le lo mom je le ikan midang tunga discuss du te kan om chon hun kan ong le ringa chuanin import ni sela hemi kan program hi miss kan miss Becky propound ani nang in pon se aman min khar saksela athain karinga chon ikan midang discuss du kan om ni chuanin ama naron mingaron sei chok lenga digan discuss anga chuan khun ti hun live vela khanin dule min conclude saksela athain karing
Oh, so you look low name. Anyone?
Miss.
Oh.
Miss zona pakat kan ni ha. Min chethe.
No, hete.
Ka zona chu registration of copyright chung changa khan in presentation slide ta khan aman optional ania mandatory lawin tita problem om thei don khan kalau she de hleka achan chu pakhat khan hei ka original work ania ti khan problem kha om thei don in ka sia copyright protection kan ne lom kha ti thei don in kalau she de hleka chu wang chuan from your opinion, do you think that registration of copyright should be made mandatory? Di kaka zona aniye.
So klai ka Aldrin kanin chang le sela presentation atang
Indian Copyright Act 1957 han khoya ama mandatory ani turti atilo ta kan soita chuanin ne tuna ama zona kha thakop maya entirnan tum zokin ka original work alom an lo ti tlat khanin boina ve theita chu wang tak reng chuanin optional ni lo ma se mandatory mandatory ni ma se sorry kan han soi so mandatory ni lo ma se optional ani chung po in keima ngai dana chuanin mandatory register nge chu tha ka ti chumi chu apoi mo zia sia in ka na sina te po khan kan han soi le du chun sina te po khan court judgment kan han ta lang court judgment anga nge interpretation dang de kha lo om ve thei ni chan chu court judgment po kai an lo zia te po kan han mo le lamin registration nangai nge lom an tia le lam pangin registration nangai hleinem an lo ti ve le to thung ta khang boina zong pumpel tu khan ahar saru tuk chuang lo boka registration ti kha mandatory nge chu ke chon ke mangai da chon tha ka tia chumi poimo zia chu sia in cha mari veng ke gp ke mani chen na veng ni ta cha mari veng ke gp point ne na ro poi sang sa ko sum ko por de mi to pu fa ni chuang zia de to kha an register ani achan chu soita kan khan work reng kan siam zo hlim chona automatic right ani ta automatic right ania kan siam zo hlim chona khan copyright protection kan nei ni ti kha ke ma ni a chaw chiang ma se court of law han lo chiang ve lo ta se kata ta khan enge kan ta nge ni ti proof na turin eng document nge kan show ang kan lo show mu mal thi lo khan entirnan tangible form lo ziak lo tai la le nga na khan boina om the chu wang chun ke ma ngai tan chun mandatory nge kha tha ka ti ya har sa chuang lo boka chuan kan han soi bel le du bok chu Mizoram a hian kan lai aware tok lo chon ka sia a thei ram chuan in mandatory ani ngei theinan chuan in dana chot lo se ma se keima ngai dana chuan copyright protection I ngai poimo tan chuan registration ti ngei chu tha ka ti mandatory se tha ka ti
hello
moderator kalaya khanin khalai points a khanin kalau soive lok thengim registration chungchang kha ngai ka ngai dan ti mail atem zadin hei kan in program ti me yang IPR kepo ka subject ka topic chan kha trademark anita mo chan IPR zaina hei an acha ka ti khop main class in hetiang in an organize Miss Becky kai shwaina hnuaya alom ka tia enge ka chuang top cheu ni ke ma pon chuanin khalai registration chungchang kha kan claim kan lo bel ve zeu du le ka ngai dan le chania ka shat ve kan bel zewanga hei copyright tun laya timeyang I hei covid awang ten thil chi sang sang a thleng kanin thak na sa ta em ta I ke ma po hyang kalo ngai ve dan chena chong hen IPR subject la poimo chho tur le nakina te po case la chho chan ni tura hain kalo ngai ve chena ni chuanin chuta chuanin registration chungchanga khanin soi ang khanin a act khanin mandatory anilo chu ati a mandatory nilo ma sengin me in registration kha a work a copyright enge a artistic work ani emo drama eng po khalung ni ta se copyright act nuaya in register ni khachuanin it will be a prima facie evidence in case of action against third parties mo prima facie evidence ani donani achanchu heta I trademark apo khanin registration chungchang kan zir khanin me in a trademark kha ava register don ta chuta chuanin steps sang kha ta tiro chuta po chuanin enge journal ten publish anga ti te tin chumi ba ka advertisement te omanga minan lo oppose du ani pon tikhanan lo oppose anga mase chutiang anga engma enge oppose na enge mo omlo ani chuanin kha adil tu kha I pek ani don ta chuwang chuanin copyright chungchang anga te po mi in hei hi chukati alom hei ka zia alom ti in thu in chu po kha lo om theita mase copyright nei masatu kha chu entinan lo in ti boy po ni ta se copyright noya kha a work kha in register thlap ani chuan heta mandatory ani lo rual khanin enge infringement te lo om ta se it will be a prima facie evidence in case of action against third parties so wangin registration ka chu ala thathau thawani ti kha ke ka ngai ve dana khalai te ka kalo tho ve lo kalomia
lomum khop mai is chunga kan loma hemi nia registration chungchang te hemi copyright chungchang hanin claima kan bel velak du chu puar ke lian zo la khan atien te Mizoram ma that lo na chan le kan ram achiat na chan chu mi tha mi fel ngoi reng te bang ani an te chu tiang che chu ta antiran copyright chungchang apon se artist tam tak kan nei ta authors tam tak kan nei ta heng ho hian an mani ho hianin an chang hriin le tun ma chang pokanin lo register na chang le an right lo protect na chang kha thin ta se la chuanin in kim an work zong zong hi khami protect vek ni ta se khami chang khan mi pui te po hianin violate me chi lo infringe me chi ni lo tin kan nam nu lin le kha tiang han engma hi kan ti lo tu ni ta tunaya mi then khat an lo har suak tan tiran ka denge I love you ti te tu chonin tu kim ta po an boy ni te point kan ka ria khat yang khani mi then khat tu te mo protect an lo du pol an lo khan kong khan ti thui to thin in ka ria chu wang chonin hami etinan mandatory lenem mandatory ni chong ni am dutan register thei dutan register lo theilom chuwa chonin adu du lo samei me ro se ti lai vel khami kan mental kha kan thak angai ka ta ni chu tiang le wa enge ho me kan ngai jang ni chon tin ja po til bo thak ja don ta chan chu a penalty khami hello eng chen hinge protect ti hello mi tam takhinom ta social media kan mang na sa to box ya khalaya khanin nge khatyanga in discourage actually in me va encourage ang zonga nge sir like ni ang tinan bikin law sir like the page na mi tiang ti chona register nge ro tiang zonga in free ang zonga tongtom kan chuo tam kha pui moi ka ya ole tuna midang sei du te kan lom le ni chuan tuna dar kwa chen ya lakma lu tuk thawa kan tui tlanga kan ita sa ni chuanin kham khop lo in soi ho ila thame midang kan lo me ko miss lo ko le la adin thuk fek lom je la
John ka kan som ve kan CR John T Lungmuana.
Oh, hello. A voice in chat mo.
kan the
Yes.
Oh. Heta Aldrin le zona ha zona ka nei dua an pania khan. Aldrin lampang sai ta chuan puel lian dinga biga han enge nangma hemi research nangma ni research zongzonga findings milo shil the findings shim kha point thum ve langin chuan zona khan tinahan torrents ti kheron sei zoya khami chungsanga tlem milo shilbel thengem chu zona pani ani mai awas in pani Aldrin milo chan sama sa se chon Jonathan zona han milo chan sak se
alo ngai zona thata kan ya he seminar tan liao hian pupi lian ding kha ami mal takin kha bia chuanin china ka soita kan khan deng I love you ti film director po khami mal takin kan va bia ni zona ang khan kan findings chu pakhatna chuanin translation hi antirnan khami lekhabu a translate a publish a economic gain ta na lo man hun lai sang zakwa sumria chho a khachuanin copyright protection kha Sherlock Holmes novels a han al om ngei ni a infringe ngei ni antirnan lo sheta se ron king du don ta se boina tok me the a chan chu copyright protection kha Arthur Conan Doyle thi nu kung sum ruk chu ni ta 1930 a khana hita a copyright protection kha 1990 theng adam ani chu sa ju ko sum riat tho bor vela publisher kha chu khati hun lai khanin avoid tina ni ta chuanin chu ka findings ni amaro chu han deep do na ka han lu thuk chuanin loopholes om thei mai ang a ti ngai dan om thei ni pakhatna chuanin soita kang khan translation chu derivative work ania phalnala kangai ni maro chu copyright protection om do chon phalnala kangai ni ti kha heta court precedent om to ni achunga a inziak thoboka court precedent oma copyright protection translation an nei don ani chuanin an mani original work nei do de phalna nei ngai ni ti khadan om da din Berne convention kha om bokta Berne convention a po khan translator ho copyright work kha original work nei tu tenen an digna chan vo nei khan copyright protection khai ang rang ani ti kha ka findings nei chu ni boka chuan endianan copyright protection ngai ruat na in kan han siam sina ngai ruat na in endianan copyright protection kha lo om ta se tu na hian tum din na hian copyright protection kha lo om ta se Sherlock Holmes novels a khan chuanin endianan boina alo tok thengem ti in kan han ngai ruat china ni educational purpose tan chuan heta United Kingdom de mi original work United Kingdom de mi ta heta Mizoram India a derivative work karon chuak ta chutiang ani ta ka chuanin Indian law ringot khan man ani don lova international law man ngai ta ta chun international law chun Berne Convention khom ta Berne Convention a chuanin mi in toizoi kan han soi me Berne Convention article 2 a khan mi in ama work kha ama literary work kha an chen na ram ni lo country danga foreign land a a translation a pechuak du ni chuanin ni kha translation a khan exclusive right anei du ni chuanin kumsom chungin a publish du thu alan tier tur ni va publication emo a publish du thu ava puang chokang ti kha heta Berne Convention a khan omta chuwang zon exclusive right kha anei don lo shim konan doile state khan chan chu ta Mizoram language kha Mizoram language khan translation kanon ti du khanon ti don lo heta mi academy khan angai poimo ber tur chu majority of the persons using the language kha chong mangdo tur kha atam na chok khanin khan ti du don ti kha share dengan Mizo minority mi noi som vel or omna chenna copyright protection ikaman nei du ti kha anon lan tir don lo ti kha ka findings anita chu chiang renga chu wang chu anon lan tir lo reng boka chu chiang takani chuanin entirnan lo international copyright order 1999 kha lo kai lu le don tai la PL ding hian copyright protection ama work khan anei chiang balem ti kha kan la soi zau du don ni chuan international copyright order 1999 kan en don tai international copyright order 1999 paragraph 5 khan only in respect of translation of work into any language specified in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India ti ain ziakta hi proviso ni tani international copyright order chuanin foreign atanga work renga protecta entirna nan soi chu section 32 of the Indian Copyright Act 1957 apo translation mean a publish doni zone a publish tu ne na han phalna la turani in ta ma se paragraph 5 exception ani ta paragraph 5 a hian section 32 mi kha heng 8 schedule ve lo te tan chuan apply ve lovang adita 8 schedule Mizo chong hi lova 8 schedule ho chu chong lian zual pui chong som ni pani ho khani ta chu wang chuanin mean translation a publish don ani a copyright owner a claim don ani chuanin 8 schedule chungami chau ani turani ti aron ti na ani ta midang ho zong minority chong ho zong chu protect du wangin asan chu literary work ani ta mani chong hlutna ron ti chiang tu tur ni wangin khati hun lai legislature po khan legislature po khanin 8 schedule aron ti kherna san po minority te protect adu wangani karinga chu wang chuanin ang kong point han clear don taila PL lianding a khanin copyright protection arthur conan doila le khabu khan copyright infringe lo ti don ta se heng zong international law te Indian international copyright order te tin court interpretation te zong en khanin infringe lo ni ti kha chiang bal me chumi chu a chian bal ba ka chuanin he a translation hi derivative work an hin angin effort ta pe ya translate tu effort ta pe ni ti kha chiang bala ama pon trong kam tam taka kha Mizo ina kan shia thiam thei turin alo koi lek veta kha labor and skill ti kha china kan soi to khamo labor and skill effort alo pe ya chu wang chuanin automatic in soita khan automatic in copyright protection nei amaro chu ale pe ka mi in ama phalna lova YouTube an lo share cho economic gain an lo nei ni chuanin ama da na chaber chu ke ma ngai da chuna pon soi thova ti ka du ve mangai ti ama ta na chaber chu copyright register nge kha kan ma mi te lo soi ta ang kan register nge se khami te kha va king du ni pon damages of a claim dei theita chiang bala anei tu ani na kha chiang bala kha mis ron soi ta ang khanin prima facie evidence ni ani wangin chu ke ma pon ka du pui thu te pok lo shila chung ho chu ka findings chu ni
Jonathan Karin Chang Thito Nem.
Zona khachu I minom chan sakto ani chu.
Chang Tomo. Imponi Sela.
Kalom tuk.
Yeah, atop lam kan nei tonga imponi se o Miss Becky chung hanin kan long thu sei lo thei lo nim ka khia ama kai soina noya kan zirlai kan syllabus chung mi ngai kan chiana kan bel zual theina turin ti hanin webinar te bo seila ti te poron rotta chuanin ya in bo seina hun thol chalu tuk tok mai temin pianin za ngai thei doin do thei doin ti hanin min wapa chuan hun tha te pon ama min pe ka wang zania te po lo thing takin hun kan mang ho thei ni ta hala khanin kan tong kam mana te pon isela kan activity hang hanga enga mo du khoblo na le enga mo tang snip te po lo om ve thei ni ta chuan hi kan chuan na class ang zong pe chuan na voi khat na te anita chuwang chuan kan zei lo vio mai thei boka chuwang chu kam ya chu cha khanin in mi khiat thiam na te kan di la chuan kan ti ni chuanin kan la zei chho ba zel tu ra po ngai la chuan hi hianin result chatak te po aran thok chua kan bei se ya di chuanin mission engkim bulmin chan saka imponi se poi atilo ni chuanin ama ngei min khar sak le sela a thangai kan tiani
Rapporteur ka moderator. Rapporteur ka
ni take sorry. Now Katrina Rapporteur kan so mga a record te report turin hun pele lokang
sana reilu tuklaw na misaw tungin dar kwale mi so pakat lagi to reilu tuklaw na misaw tungin karon say sungsung ang eon zanin kanzanina kan webinar intellectual property law on an overview of the judicial introverts into copyright ti aniya heta hianin moderator ma engate C Lalengliana presenter Aldrin Zothanmawia discussion Mary Lalthlamuani le Jonathan Thangeo le Rapporteur Lalnunsangi te an anon present heya ama sabira chuanin he webinar hwai khot tu Miss Rebecca Rindikin bul mention saka tin ama pu chunga polom thukan on site han ni se chumi zo chuan C Lalengliana moderatorin mi hun aron mang chawle heta hianin discussion dina anti le ti lo turte aron soi chawzoya chumi nuwa discussion te som zuin a presenter som sabera presenter hianin overview on judicial inroads into copyright law the subsistence of copyright law in PL Liangdingas Mr. Translations of the Sherlock Holmes novels ti mangin a presentation chatak aron ya heng aron so izing ahanin status of copyright law in India te aron sia chubit no section poi mo te limitation ti te registration hi allow poi mo rengem ti te aron sia so baka copyright hanin enge literary worker protection na neyem ti te khang song song enge kan sha du song song aron so ikim thukhat le boka chubit no chuanin discussion Mary Lalthlamuani Jonathan Thangeo som lein ani hianin copyright law hi in India hianin adult yaltia lem enge ni I danina allow khwa khena allow khwam saudante kami discussion karon soi changin Jonathan hianin India chuanin dan hwaya in jurisdiction chata ka ti aron soi chwaka amaro chu in India ram chu kan sha chep angin mi puitam tak chena ani na angin mi puite bokin kan mang swala fake account te kan naw siama chu ta chu heng te hi kan na inzel tur kan na improve le zel tur ani te poina ron soi boka discussion Mary Lalthlamuani hianin Mizoram hianin awareness copyright chung changa hianin kan nei thato kem ti te aron soya ani hianin Mizoramina enge dis awareness kan nei thatle that laute aron soi ba ka hianin enge kan lau fa lau kan lau copyright kan lau register to te tem ron soi langin heng chu te chu Mizoram science technology hnuaya an register te aron soi chwa ka henga hianin register pangala aron soi chwa ka kan ta lang vek to lau menga ama Mary Lalthlamuani hianin Mizoramina copyright chung changa hianin ma kan na son nutuk lau zia te ron soi chwakin copyright claim dan copyright engtin nge kan register ang ti te aron soya osam takin ati dan te aron soi ta ni chu amai ro chu Mizo te chu thilngai osam mi kan lo ni na ti mai ro se ani mai lom ka siam ni atia tuma ina kan lai ngai to lutuk lau sia te ron soin henga hianin ami pui ang zong pon aram ang zong pon improve kan ngai hle ti na ron soi bokani tin hemin huwa hian discussion classmate te achangin kau chwa ani boka ani po han zona poi mo tak tak ron zo tin kan ta na thlok na tur lin anon zok boka tin presenter te discussion kan rat chwa te po in chatak in anon perform cha kan zona kan classmate ba ka ni mal tin kan hlok pui cheu ka ring boka ni klomia
Okay, now I will refer back the program to Miss Becky to summarize and to end up our sessions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Alo, bumkatiya zalina hianin class webinar kan hanwat saya at usualin kapul to ka nge initiate wanga classroom kan hanin wata ti dan tu de kan hanin sila maro chu akalak lowa thil nge motra je patam wangin kan han ti le lok theilowa chu ti chung suan nge ni team ho win lo changa ilo enthusiast topic chade win ron let's work theya this one zaina hotina kan huwa ka congratulate so was in a panel te you have done a great job but sabelania in our team dai ve ti ka sha kaning guide thoa ti dan kani ju thoma se I atak tak atina lo omlo chu bangsuan first time marin nya chu ti chung suan chade win ron tia chu bangsuan lom thu kan soya moderator pani ron moderate cha in ka sha enge ni han stop hun tele khatia han enge ni han ai shwai dana ka iron ti chale up my eng poka congratulate the team presenter ron ti chakop meya kan topic hi enge ni interesting do turina ron swa Mizoram issues atang khan kami khan attract emema midang tam tapuin anon sa kani kami kan topic kan han sopswa atang khan katianga ka issues kan han siam na zirte hianin angai renga po kha alo attractive china presenter pon research tin sa discussant te pani pon research and business le in ka sha alo mum ka dile so an ka congratulate so invite ka training por on ti cha report ka English ni ron siama nga nakinai ron submit nga hemi hi report akan hangdo ni IQAC akan dalu dona kami kan post certain kan dia kan sei du poka swan sari na yanin kan faculty seminar toy om chale Miss Marwati te Miss Mingthani te Miss Opari te Miss Angela swan principal du na khanda ronda sok bu poka principal po om ringin ka share sida chang to in Miss Rudy te ingeni alom ka di Miss AC te hote pon oma minron joy oma classroom webinar ni ma se webinar tweeting ang taking minron na ilut saka an sunga lom thu kan so ni Miss Nancy te po an vain kim deu tho in ka sha Miss di ki man lo minron chila tiang su ni zalina kan topic ayanin comment ka pevak don shilo san su tu na chuanin kan eng lo nai ni in kina classroom adule atu chuanin kan na soizaw vele anga hey ne copyright apoi mo ma kem te kan lo ko chu copyright sunya tu na kan so ang registration po ngai lo automatica kema original kema na ka ngi original expression kan ei chuan thil omsa similar po ang de khalo om to ma se kema na adang de forma ka express wa chuan ha copyright ka nei ngal to pani ti kha alo ni ta ani copyright law chuan chu ta kara chuan registration ka angai chuang lawa Entinan nasineng so itam takchan mari ho drama te poka ahun la ya khanin evidence om chato ahun la ya khan thu she tu tam takan om to awangin anu a subsequent in khatiang works ang de om si kha ron siam ma se chu ron register ma se kha khan nge ni I exceed don lo om se chu registration kha ani kha don swang lo ni asan su a thu she tu te khan om tho swan ma se to be on the safe side registration hi ideal ni ati thei swan Mizoram ma kan awareness na chatok lo ti asha ta overall ang registration na copyright registration kan lo na lo le a mistake la mate innova zota khatya kha na research tak main non sok swak thia khang te kha eye opener ni ta se kha mi pya la ma khan copyright ba ka khan kha GI te po tu na ya thar kan nei wala mizo kwan anga te trademark se po achen swan lo ti ve a khatya ang pheo kha ania intellectual property right ayan kan la sang lawa san su kan economy in la zir lo wang te po ni anga chu bang son tu na yanin kan mamo chhozel ani copy any mi law sahi IPR law sahi chu bang sonin lawyers te we kan poimo ema tin so many lawin tu na po he IQAC a po kan wai pe na kina ron ti china yan question compulsory question as on seminar on IPR in it him si mo khatiang kharon china ni chuwang swan apoi mo mani ti kha sha tani ti kan sei do bokani swan adang khasu ka comment fak to shi lawanga zanina kan topic apo kha interesting a pupil yandinga ki sungsang apo kha ani alan dan ta ka khaswan me works akhasu engeni allo translate to khasu it's very wrong it kan lo aswan engeni Copyright Act 1957 aswani na thelo bulwala ni khatsu maset ka karon comment bakshi lawanga swan engponi se he it's just the first time he atop na ani don lawa he kan chan na turani ke mani semester yan kan ti le tun semester kan ti kher the to lo me the ma se hetiang ang hi classroom engeni discussion tele research be hi encourage ti sang zel turin kan lenglo sewa weina changya thil danga po na sazoka effort pe ti zel turin ingeni kan fingal book sewani zanina team te ka congratulate sewa lote zongzong te lom thu kan sweni chuan in attendance sakha kalo chat box chang khan kami participants chang kha kalo na chumi su kalo enter me anga ashan ta chuan kan to ti khani me se ti khan kharme lang atop khela abikin kan teachers se ho he na long thu kan sweni ti khan du top me lang in zavain mang thla kan ti me don ni nge moderator khan sei du la ni ma announcement
nei chong lo we ka ti zong kha tu ma tan chon ni to me ro se
ale ti khan ti du top me in mang cha phatang ule lo tu ke